The rain-slicked cliffs of Costa Brava swallowed the scream before it could echo back, but Adeline's voice cracked the night like thunder anyway. "You lied to me about everything," she hurled at the shadowy figure clutching a crumpled letter, the words her foster mother's hands had just torn from the mailbox. In that instant, as lightning forked across the Mediterranean sky, Adeline felt the ground shift, not just beneath her feet, but through the fragile walls of the life she'd built on borrowed truths. Adeline Rivera had always known she was a storm in human form, wild curls the color of autumn leaves, eyes like polished jade that could pin you in place with a glance, and a laugh that bubbled up like champagne even on the grayest days. At 17, she'd washed up on the shores of this sleepy Spanish town like driftwood from some forgotten American dream. Her real parents, a hazy memory of laughter in a sun-drenched California kitchen, the scent of fresh tortillas, and her mother's off-key singing to old Fleetwood Mac records. Then the crash. A car wreck on a winding Pacific Coast highway road, they said. Drunk driver. Instant. Orphaned at 12, she'd bounced through foster homes in the States until the system spat her out to international placement, straight into the iron grip of the Hargroves. Eleanor and Thomas Hargrove were the epitome of transplanted Yankee rigidity, Midwestern transplants who'd fled corporate burnout for authenticity, in Spain 5 years back. They ran a boutique olive oil empire from their villa overlooking the sea, all terracotta tiles and whitewashed walls that screamed old money restraint. Eleanor, with her razor-sharp bob and pearls that never tarnished, quoted Bible verses like stock tips. Thomas, balding and broad-shouldered, enforced curfews with the precision of a Wall Street closing bell. They weren't cruel, not in the cartoon villain way. No locked doors or withheld meals. But their love was a ledger. Good behavior earned privileges, deviations racked up debts. And Adeline? She was their project. A chance to mold a wayward soul into something presentable for their vision of God-fearing normalcy. From the moment she arrived, bags slung over her shoulder and a foster agency social worker trailing like a guilty shadow, the rules descended like fog off the bay. No boys ever. No unseemly friendships that might confuse the heart. Church every Sunday at the American Expatriate Chapel in Girona, where hymns droned in English amid the scent of incense and stale coffee. Adeline nodded through it all, her tongue thick with the effort of swallowing her truths. She wasn't confused. She'd known since she was 14, stealing glances at the curve of a classmate's neck in P class, that her heart beat for girls. But here in this sun-bleached exile, confession felt like stepping off the cliff. The town of Cadax, with its white houses tumbling down to the sea like spilled sugar, was her reluctant sanctuary. Salvador Dali had wandered these streets once, painting melting clocks and elephants on stilts, but Adeline found her escapes in the quieter corners. The hidden coves where waves whispered secrets, or the dusty bookstore on Cara McKinley, named for some long-dead president, a nod to the American ghosts who dotted the coast. It was there, on a humid July afternoon 3 months into her sentence with the Hargroves, that she met Haley. Haley Brooks was 18, a summer intern at the bookstore, fresh off a gap year from UC Berkeley that her overachieving parents had reluctantly funded. Tall and lithe with sun-kissed blonde waves that framed a face dotted with faint summer freckles, Haley moved like she owned the air around her. Easy confidence born of California beaches and protest marches. She wore faded band tees under overalls, her blue eyes crinkling with mischief when she recommended dog-eared copies of Audre Lorde or Joan Didion. Stories are rebellions, she'd say, sliding a book across the counter with a wink that made Adeline's pulse stutter. Their first real conversation started over a spilled stack of paperbacks. Adeline had been browsing the LGBTQ+ shelf, hidden in the back behind travel guides to avoid the prying eyes of expat housewives, when her elbow caught the edge. Books rained down. The Price of Salt, Ruby Fruit Jungle, pages splaying like fallen leaves. "Whoa, easy there, literary avalanche," Haley laughed, dropping to her knees to gather them. Adeline's cheeks burned hotter than the Spanish sun. "Sorry, I'm clumsy with hidden treasures." Haley's gaze flicked to the titles, then up to Adeline's face, lingering just long enough to spark something electric. "No apologies needed. These are my favorites. You got a name? Or should I just call you the girl who topples empires?" Adeline managed a grin. "Adeline. And you're?" "Haley. The Empire Keeper." From that moment, the bookstore became Adeline's daily pilgrimage. She'd linger after her errands, Eleanor's code for supervised town outings, feigning interest in postcards while stealing hours with Haley. They talked for the first time about everything and nothing. Haley's dreams of film school, Adeline's buried sketches of the sea in charcoal. "You draw like you're fighting the tide," Haley said once, peering over her shoulder at a notebook page. Adeline shrugged, heart hammering. "Maybe I am." By August, the air between them thickened with unspoken wants. Stolen touches, a brush of fingers over a shared iced horchata, Haley's knee pressing against Adeline's under the cafe table next door. One evening, as the sun dipped into the sea like a blood orange, Haley invited her to the cove. No rules out there. Just us and the waves. Adeline hesitated, the Hargrove villa looming in her mind like a sentinel, but the pull was stronger. She slipped out after dinner, claiming a headache, her sketchbook clutched like a shield. The cove was a crescent of pebbled sand, ringed by cliffs that muffled the world. They sat on a weathered blanket, Haley strumming an old guitar she'd smuggled from Berkeley, songs about lost girls and open roads. Adeline leaned back, the salt air loosening the knots in her chest. "Why here?" she asked softly. "Spain, I mean. Not home." Haley's fingers stilled on the strings. "My folks thought it'd build character. Dad's on sabbatical teaching econ at the uni in Barcelona. Mom's obsessed with tapas and European refinement. But honestly, I needed space to breathe, to figure out who I am without their expectations." She turned, eyes searching Adeline's. "You get that, right? The weight of being someone else's version of you." Adeline nodded, throat tight. "More than you know." In the fading light, Haley reached out, tucking a curl behind Adeline's ear. The touch lingered, a question. Adeline answered by closing the distance, their lips meeting soft and tentative, like the first rain after drought. It was clumsy, all nerves and salt-tinged breath, but it unfurled something deep inside her, a bloom long starved for sun. They kissed until the stars pricked the sky, hands entwined, the world narrowing to the rhythm of waves and heartbeats. Back at the villa, guilt gnawed at Adeline like sea erosion. The Hargroves' dinner table was a minefield of small talk, Thomas droning about olive yields, Eleanor quizzing her on catechism verses. "God sees all, Addie," she'd say, her smile a blade wrapped in silk. Adeline forced smiles, her secret a live wire under her skin. But with Haley, she was alive. Texts buzzing late at night, hidden under pillows, stolen afternoons in the bookstore's back room, where they'd curl up reading aloud, Haley's voice wrapping around words like love and defiance until they felt like hers to claim. Fall crept in with cooler winds off the Pyrenees, turning the air crisp and the leaves on the olive groves to gold. Adeline's world tilted further when Haley confessed her own shadows. Over coffee in a tucked-away plaza, surrounded by the chatter of locals and the scent of fresh churros, Haley's voice dropped. "I came out last year. Mom cried for a week, Dad quoted Leviticus like it was a business memo. They shipped me here to pray it away. But I'm done hiding." Adeline's hand found hers under the table. "You're not alone anymore." Their bond deepened into something fierce and tender. Late-night walks along the harbor, where fishing boats bobbed like forgotten promises. Shared dreams whispered under fig trees heavy with fruit. Adeline sketched Haley endlessly, her profile against the sea foam, laughter lines etching joy into her features. Haley, in turn, filmed snippets on her phone. Adeline dancing barefoot on the sand, wild and free. "This is you," she'd say. "The real you." But cracks spiderwebbed through the idol. Eleanor's suspicions sharpened like thorns. A missed curfew here, a secretive smile there. "Who's this Haley girl?" She cornered Adeline one evening, arms crossed in the kitchen's harsh fluorescent light. "Just a friend from the bookstore." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Friends don't make you glow like that, Addie. Or lie." Thomas, ever the enforcer, doubled down. No more outings unsupervised. Adeline chafed against the cage, her rebellion simmering. The betrayal came swift as a squall. It was mid-October, the town gearing up for All Saints with lanterns flickering in shop windows. Adeline had planned a quiet escape, a picnic at the Dolly House ruins, where genius and madness intertwined. She forged a note from Eleanor, a risky bid for normalcy. But as she slipped through the villa's garden gate, a hand clamped her shoulder. Thomas faced thunderous, phone in hand. "We know, Adeline. About the lies. About her." Her stomach plummeted. Haley's texts, somehow intercepted, perhaps from a concerned neighbor's Wi-Fi scan, or Eleanor's relentless vigilance. They dragged her inside. The letter from the agency a prop in their morality play. "This behavior ends now," Eleanor intoned, voice quivering with righteous fury. "We'll pray for you. For deliverance." Adeline's world fractured. "You can't fix what's not broken," she shouted, tears hot on her cheeks. Thomas's slap was light, more shock than sting. A line crossed in their perfect ledger. Confined to her room, Adeline's phone confiscated, she scratched pleas into her sketchbook. "I love her. Let me go." Days blurred into a haze of forced Bible studies and tearful interventions. Haley's messages went unanswered, her worry mounting into desperate knocks at the villa gate. Turned away by a stone-faced Thomas. Whispers rippled through the expat community. The Hargroves' troubled charge spiraling again. The truth about her parents' death emerged not with fanfare, but in the quiet unraveling of a sealed envelope. Eleanor, in a moment of what she deemed tough love, had rifled through Adeline's belongings for demonic influences. Instead, she unearthed a faded letter from a California lawyer, tucked in the lining of her suitcase since arrival, missed in the chaos of transit. Adeline had never opened it, too raw with grief. But Eleanor did. The words hit like aftershocks. "Not an accident. Your parents were targeted. Whistleblowers on a corporate scandal. Embezzlement at Thomas's old firm. They knew too much. The drunk driver was paid off. We've suppressed it for your safety, but now." Adeline's real father had been Thomas Hargrove's colleague, a rising star in finance who'd uncovered the rot. The crash? No random tragedy, but a silencing. And Thomas, her foster father, had been complicit, fleeing to Spain not for burnout but burial of sins. Eleanor burst into Adeline's room that stormy night, the letter trembling in her grip. Rain lashed the windows like accusations. This changes nothing," she stammered, face ashen. But Adeline saw the fracture. The woman who'd preached purity now clutching evidence of her husband's darkness. "You knew," Adeline whispered, piecing it from Eleanor's evasion. "Or suspected. And you took me into, what? Atone? Control the loose end." The confrontation spilled into the hall, Thomas roused from sleep, his denials crumbling under the letter's weight. "It was business, Eleanor. They were going to ruin us all." But the mask slipped, the strictness, the rules, a fortress against his own guilt projected onto Adeline. Betrayal layered upon betrayal. Not just the lie of her parents' end, but the Hargroves' adoption as a twisted redemption, molding her into silence. Adeline fled into the gale, barefoot and soaked, the letter clutched to her chest. The cliffs called, but so did Haley's silhouette at the garden wall, summoned by a frantic, smuggled note earlier that day. "Addie!" Haley's arms enveloped her, warm against the chill. "What happened?" "They wouldn't let me." Adeline thrust the letter forward, words tumbling in sobs. Haley read by flashlight, horror etching her features. "God, that's murder. We have to go to the police. Now." But dawn brought caution. The expat community was a web. Thomas's old ties ran deep, whispers of influence that could bury truths again. They holed up in Haley's rented flat above the bookstore, a cramped haven of books and sea views. Days turned to strategy. Anonymous tips to Barcelona journalists, copies of the letter mailed to U.S. authorities. Adeline's heart, though warred between justice and escape. "I can't stay here," she confessed one night, curled against Haley on the narrow bed. "Not with their shadows everywhere." Haley's fingers traced her jaw. "Then we leave. Together. Berkeley's got programs for undocumented dreamers like you, scholarships, safe houses. We'll fight from there." Their kiss was fierce, a vow sealed in salt and starlight filtering through cracked shutters. Love in its rawest form became their anchor, Haley's steady hand guiding Adeline through nightmares, Adeline's sketches mapping their future. Two figures on a California cliff, free. The climax crested like a rogue wave at the Harbor Festival, Todos Los Santos lanterns bobbing on the water like lost souls. The Hargroves, desperate to salvage their facade, cornered them amid the crowd. Eleanor tear-streaked, Thomas blustering about family duty. "You owe us, girl," he growled. "After what we've done." Adeline stepped forward, voice steady as the sea beyond. "What you've done is steal my life twice. My parents died because of you. And now? I'm taking it back. Gasps rippled. A journalist from the tip-off lingered nearby, recorder hidden. Thomas lunged, but Haley interposed, her cry drawing eyes. Back off. She's not your puppet anymore. The scuffle was brief, shouts, a toppled lantern, flames licking the night, but enough. Phones captured it all. The unraveling of the Hargrove myth. By morning, headlines screamed from Barcelona to LA, expat tycoon linked to corporate hit? Orphan's letter exposes scandal. In the aftermath, the villa stood empty, the Hargroves fleeing back to the States under a cloud of investigations. Eleanor left a final note, scrawled in regret. Forgive us. We thought we were saving you. Adeline burned it on the beach, ashes scattering on the tide. Justice was slow, a grinding of courts across oceans, but it came. Indictments, settlements that funded her freedom. Haley and Adeline boarded a flight to California in December, the Spanish coast shrinking below like a healed scar. Berkeley welcomed them. Dorms alive with queer pride flags, classes on ethics and art that fed Adeline's soul. She enrolled under a new scholarship for foster youth, her sketches evolving into murals of resilience. Women entwined against storms, hands clasped in defiance. Years later at 25, Adeline stood on that Pacific Coast highway, Haley's ring glinting on her finger. A simple band etched with waves. The crash site was marked by wildflowers now. A quiet memorial her parents would have loved. We made it, Haley murmured, arm around her waist. Adeline nodded, tears mingling with sea spray. Not just survived. Lived. In the end, it wasn't vengeance that healed, but the human thread they'd woven, flawed, fierce, unbreakable. Love, it turned out, was the truest rebellion. A light that outshone even the darkest cliffs. The plane's hum was a lullaby Adeline couldn't quite trust, even as Haley's head rested on her shoulder, blonde waves spilling like sunlight over the armrest. 5 hours into the flight from Barcelona to San Francisco, the weight of Kodak still clung, the sting of salt air, the echo of Eleanor's fractured pleas. Adeline stared at the in-flight map, that glowing dot tracing their arc over the Atlantic, and wondered if freedom felt this much like falling. Berkeley hit them like a fever dream. Eucalyptus-scented air thick with possibility, Telegraph Avenue pulsing with buskers and banners for every cause under the sun. Haley's family flat was a third-floor walk-up in the hills, all exposed brick and posters of Frida Kahlo glaring from the walls. Home for now, Haley said, dropping their duffels with a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. Adeline paused in the doorway, sketchbook in hand, the unfamiliar sprawl of it all pressing in. It's big. Loud. Haley pulled her close. Yeah, but it's ours. Settling in was a dance of firsts. Adeline's acceptance to Cal's art program, funded by a mix of the settlement check, cold cash from Thomas's crumbling empire, and a fierce essay on resilience she'd poured out in one tear-streaked night. Classes began in January, her studio a sunlit loft where charcoal dust motes danced like fireflies. Professors saw the fire in her lines, the raw emotion of cliffs and clasped hands, and pushed her toward exhibitions. You've got a voice that cuts, one told her. An older woman with silver braids and a knowing smile. Use it. Haley dove back into film studies, her short doc on expat isolation already buzzing in student screenings. Evenings they'd collapse onto the sagging couch, takeout cartons scattered, dissecting the day's triumphs and fractures. Remember the cove? Haley would murmur, tracing Adeline's palm. That first kiss tasting like freedom? Adeline would laugh, pulling her nearer. Tasted like sand and bad decisions. Their love was a quiet rhythm now. Mornings tangled in sheets, coffee brewed strong and black, walks through the campus arboretum where oaks whispered approval. But shadows lingered, patient as fog. Nightmares woke Adeline in sweats. The crash replayed not as memory but revelation. Her parents' car crumpling under engineered sabotage, Thomas's face in the rear view smirking. She jolt upright, Haley's arms a lifeline. It's over, Haley soothed, but Adeline knew better. The trial loomed, a transatlantic beast with depositions and depositions, lawyers circling like gulls. Thomas and Eleanor, back in Ohio, fought extradition with teams of suits, painting Adeline as the unstable orphan spinning tales for attention. Vindictive lies from a girl we tried to save. Their statement read, splashed across tabloids. The betrayal's aftertaste soured everything. Adeline had idolized Eleanor once. Those rare pats on the back after perfect recitations, the way she'd slip extra figs into lunch bags. Now, it was all tainted. A maternal mask over complicity. Did she ever love me? Adeline asked Haley one rainy afternoon. Rain pattering the window like impatient fingers. They were knee-deep in case files, highlighter streaks marking timelines. Haley set down her pen, eyes soft. Maybe in her broken way. But that's not on you to fix. Conflict brewed closer to home, too. Haley's parents, Richard and Laura Brooks, were the polished flip side of the Hargrove coin. Progressive on paper, with rainbow stickers on their Prius and donations to GLAAD. But their acceptance came with footnotes. Richard, a tenured econ prof with wire rims and a perpetual frown, viewed Adeline through a ledger of her own. Foster kid, scandal magnet, potential distraction from Haley's promising trajectory. Laura, all yoga pants and essential oils, cooed sympathies over chamomile tea but probed endlessly. Have you tried therapy for the trauma, dear? As if Adeline's queerness was just another symptom to soothe. The first real clash erupted at a family dinner in their sprawling Marin County home. All vaulted ceilings and views of the bay that screamed Silicon Valley success. Adeline, in her best thrift store blouse, felt the scrutiny like static. Conversation flowed from wine pairings to Richard's latest paper on inequality. Ironic, given the undercurrent. Then over salmon en croûte, Laura leaned in. Adeline, sweetie, Haley mentioned the situation with your Fosters. How brave of you to speak out. But have you considered mediation? Foreclosure. Adeline's fork paused mid-air. Closure? They killed my parents. The table hushed. Richard cleared his throat. Allegedly. Trials aren't convictions, and frankly, dragging this out, it's not healthy for Haley's focus. Haley's chair scraped back. Dad, that's not fair. Addie's the one who lost everything. Richard's gaze hardened. And you're the one with a future, Hal. Film school's competitive. Scandals stick. The words landed like slaps, Haley's face paling. Adeline stood, pulse thundering. I'm not a scandal. I'm her girlfriend. She stormed out to the deck, the bay's lights blurring through hot tears. Haley followed, wrapping her in a hoodie against the chill. They're scared, she whispered, of losing their perfect daughter. Adeline leaned into her. Am I ruining you? Haley's laugh was fierce. You're saving me. From there the drama intensified. A push-pull of loyalty and fracture. Adeline threw herself into her art, her senior project a series of installations. Shattered olive jars filled with sea glass, projections of stormy skies over family portraits cracked like windshields. It debuted at the Worth Rider Gallery to murmurs of raw and unflinching, but whispers followed. That's the girl from the headlines. Dates with Haley became refuges. Picnics in Tilden Park, where redwoods muffled the world, or drives down Highway 1, reclaiming the road that had stolen her past. Yet betrayal struck again, subtler this time from the heart. Haley's big break came in April. A festival slot for her doc in Cannes. We could go, she said, eyes sparkling over paella at their favorite hole in the wall. A week in France, you and me, celebration before the trial grind. Adeline's heart soared, visions of Riviera sunsets dancing. But packing unearthed the lie. A solo ticket stub in Haley's bag dated for her flight. What? Adeline's voice broke. Haley froze, guilt flooding her features. I didn't tell them about us coming. Dad pulled strings for a networking thing. He said it'd look better if I went alone, professional image and all that. The room spun. So I'm the dirty secret now? After everything? Haley reached out. No, it's just optics, Addie. For the career. Adeline recoiled. Optics. Like Thomas's business. I thought we were past hiding. Tears streamed as she grabbed her jacket. Go to Cannes. Network your heart out. I'll be here, waiting for the next convenient erasure. The door slammed, leaving Haley in the echo. Adeline wandered the night streets, Berkeley's neon haze a blur. She ended up at the marina, waves lapping like accusations. Betrayed again. Her phone buzzed, Haley's texts. Please. I love you. It's not like that. But the hurt rooted deep, a echo of Eleanor's tough love. Thomas's ledgers. Dawn found her sketching on the pier. Two silhouettes diverging, one fading into fog. Reconciliation came haltingly. Over burnt toast and raw confessions 2 days later. Haley, red-eyed from a canceled ticket, knelt by the couch. I chose wrong. Fear over us. But I'm done. Can wait, you can't. Adeline pulled her up, their embrace amending. Promise me no more shadows. No more, Haley vowed, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of salt and second chances. The trial's climax unfolded in a stuffy Cleveland courtroom that summer. Adeline flown in on the settlement's dime, Haley beside her like a shield. Thomas, gaunt in an ill-fitting suit, avoided her eyes as the prosecutor laid bare the web. Falsified logs, payoffs traced to offshore accounts, her parents' notes on the fraud that had doomed them. Eleanor's testimony cracked the facade, whispers of her suspicions, ignored for the life they'd built. I thought silence was mercy, she sobbed, meeting Adeline's gaze for the first time. For all of us. Verdicts rang. Guilty on conspiracy, manslaughter, a plea bargain that spared the needle but not the bars. As cuffs clicked on Thomas's wrists, Adeline felt no triumph. Only a hollow exhale, the ghost of her parents stirring in the quiet. Outside, reporters swarmed, but Haley's hand in hers parted the sea. It's over, she said. Adeline nodded. Now we begin. Back in Berkeley, the emotional undercurrent swelled into romance reborn. They moved to a tiny cottage in the flats. Walls soon papered with Adeline's murals and Haley's storyboards. Love deepened in the domestic poetry. Haley's pancakes on lazy Sundays, Adeline's lullabies hummed over script readings. Vulnerability became their strength. Therapy sessions where Adeline unpacked the orphan's armor, Haley confronted her parents' conditional warmth. Richard and Laura thawed slowly, a pride flag in their yard by Christmas, awkward but earnest apologies over Zoom. Yet the humanistic core bloomed in the small graces. Adeline's first gallery show, Cliffs and Currents, selling out to queer collectors who saw their own storms reflected. Haley's Oscar-qualifying short, dedicated to the girl who taught me to dive. They volunteered at a foster youth center, Adeline mentoring teens with sketchpads and stories, Haley filming workshops on identity. We're paying it forward, Haley said one evening, as they watched the sun dip behind the hills. Adeline squeezed her hand. Not paying. Living. Winter in the Bay Area wrapped around them like a well-worn quilt. Chilly fog that burned off into crystalline afternoons, the kind that made every ordinary moment feel cinematic. Adeline and Haley's cottage became a haven of half-finished canvases and film reels, the air humming with the scent of turpentine and takeout Thai. At 20, Adeline had grown into her edges. Curls tamed into loose waves, jade eyes steadier, her laugh freer now that the weight of secrets had lifted. Haley, ever the dreamer, had traded overalls for chic blazers, but her freckles still danced when she smiled, a constellation Adeline mapped nightly. The romance, once a fragile spark, had settled into a steady flame. Deep, unhurried. The kind that withstood Bay Bridge traffic and grant rejections. Mornings started with Haley's coffee ritual, black and bold, pressed with a kiss to Adeline's temple. Afternoons bled into collaborative chaos. Adeline storyboarding for Haley's latest project, a feature on queer diaspora, or Haley posing dramatically for Adeline's portraits, all exaggerated swoons and mock-serious declarations. My muse demands payment in sonnets, Haley would tease, pulling her into a waltz across the creaky floorboards. But drama, that old companion, never strayed far. The settlement money, 7 figures whittled by taxes and legal fees, dangled like a poisoned gift. Adeline funneled most into a foundation. Rivera Echoes, scholarships for foster LGBTQ+ youth, art supplies shipped to group homes from Oakland to Oaxaca. It's not absolution, she told Haley over the foundation's launch gala. A low-key affair in a converted warehouse with fairy lights and finger foods. But it's theirs reclaimed. Haley beamed, arm looped through hers. It's you. Generous to a fault. Eleanor's letters arrived sporadically, postmarked from a halfway house in Toledo, penitent scrawls on lined paper, laced with scripture and pleas. I've found God in the quiet, Addie. Pray for Thomas. He's broken without you. Adeline read them aloud to Haley on porch swings, voice steady but edged. The first she burned, ashes to the wind. The second she filed away. By the 5th she penned a reply, not forgiveness but acknowledgement. I see your pain. Mine's its own country now. Live well. Humanistic mercy, hard won without erasure. Conflict resurfaced in the form of ghosts from Spain. A journalist's book deal, Olive Shadows, the Hargrove scandal, hit shelves that spring, dredging details Adeline had buried. Autopsy photos, blurred, thank God. Thomas's boardroom emails plotting the problem. Reviews praised it as gripping true crime. But to Adeline it was violation. Her grief repackaged for bestseller lists. Protests erupted at readings. She skipped them all, but the calls came, pundits seeking the survivor's perspective. Haley fielded most, her producer voice a velvet hammer. Adeline's not your angle. She's a person. The emotional toll crested during a late-night screening of Haley's Rough Cut. The film wove Adeline's story into a tapestry of expat exiles, interviews with queer Americans abroad, archival footage of Kodak's cliffs. But one scene lingered. A reenactment of the Cove kiss. Actors' faces blurred but the intimacy raw. Adeline paused the projector, throat tight. It's beautiful. But it's mine. Ours. Seeing it like this, it's like giving away a piece of us. Haley knelt, projector light casting halos. Is it too much? Tell me, and it's cut. Adeline cupped her face. No. It's healing. Just scared me. Like if I share it, it'll break. That vulnerability cracked open deeper confessions. Over the next weeks, they navigated the raw edges. Haley admitting her fear of using Adeline's trauma for art. Adeline voicing the orphan's dread of abandonment. Therapy, twice weekly now, became their ritual. A sunlit office overlooking the marina, where Dr. Reyes, a soft-spoken Filipina with a laugh like wind chimes, guided them through the labyrinth. Love isn't a ledger, she'd say. It's a bridge. They emerged stronger, hands clasped tighter. Romance flourished in the fertile ground of trust rebuilt. Haley proposed on a whim mid-June atop Tamalpay Peak, hiking boots muddy, wildflowers nodding in the breeze. No ring, just a wild daisy tucked behind Adeline's ear and words tumbled earnest. Marry me, Addie. Not because of storms but because of this, the quiet us. Adeline's yes was a sob laugh, their kiss tasting of earth and eternity. The wedding was them. A backyard affair in the cottage garden, fairy lights strung between lemon trees. Guests a mix of Cal profs, Foster alums, and Haley's tentatively thawed parents. Vows exchanged under a chuppah borrowed from a Jewish friend. To honor the broken and build anew. Sealed with rings forged from Spanish silver, etched with waves. Post-honeymoon, a road trip down the coast reclaiming every mile. Life layered on complexity. Adeline's first solo exhibit, Tides of Truth, toured galleries from SF to Seattle, murals of fractured families mending. Olive branches entwined with pride flags. Critics called it a humanist triumph. But the real validation came in letters from viewers. Your art saved me. Haley's film premiered at Sundance to standing ovations, the dedication scrolling. For Adeline, my cliff and my sea. Yet the story's true climax wasn't in courts or canvases, but a quiet betrayal resolved in grace. Eleanor's release from parole brought her to California. Unannounced, frail in a cardigan too big for her frame, standing on their porch one drizzly October eve. I had to see, she said, voice a whisper. Adeline, mid-sketch at the kitchen table, froze. Haley hovered, protective. You shouldn't be here. But Adeline rose, gesturing her in. Tea steeped in silence, then words. Eleanor's admissions. Nights awake knowing, choosing silence for a marriage's sake. I failed you. As mother, as human. The room held its breath. Adeline's heart warred. Rage, pity, the ache of what-ifs. You did, she said finally. But I see you now. Not as villain but woman, scared, sorry. No hugs, no absolutes, but a number exchanged, a door left ajar. Eleanor left with a sketch. Adeline's gift, two figures on a cliff, one reaching back. For the empty spaces, Adeline murmured. In the years that followed, the drama softened to elegy. Thomas died in prison, a heart attack claimed by regrets unspoken. Adeline mourned not the man, but the father he might have been. Rivera echoes grew, chapters in 3 countries, Adeline keynoting at conferences on foster reform. Haley directed her first feature. A romance of 2 artists fleeing shadows, subtly theirs, universally felt. At 30 they adopted a 6-year-old girl named Sophia. Braids like Adeline's wild curls, eyes wide with questions. Parenting was its own drama. Tantrums over bedtime, triumphs in finger paints, but laced with laughter, Haley's goofy voices animating bedtime tales. Adeline's sketches turning nightmares to adventures. Sophia's first word for them? Mamas. Simple, profound. The ending unfolded on a Kadak's beach, full circle, a decade after flight. Sophia, 12 now and fierce, dashed waves with local kids. Adeline and Haley sat on that same pebbled shore, hands laced, watching sunset gild the sea. We came back, Haley said softly. Adeline leaned her head on her shoulder. Not for ghosts. For us to claim it. No tragedy but a happy humanism. Scars as stories, love as the light that lingers. In the quiet, Adeline sketched one last time. Not fracture but wholeness. 3 silhouettes against the tide, bound eternal. The world turned storms to stars and they endured, not unbroken but beautifully so.